Welcome to the presentation. Today's presentation is going to be called The Matrix of Extinction Rebellion, and it's going to be based on this Venn diagram that I've created and a few other concepts that I've been working with over the last couple weeks and last 3 years actually. Um, Sort of something we've all been building up to for a while, maybe. Who knows? Um, so we're not going to get too much into this Venn diagram right now. We're actually going to refer back to it many times. So don't bother looking at it. It's crazy, it's wild, but it's going to be extremely useful, as we'll find out. So we'll dive back into that. Let's call that a little bit of an overview, if you will. Let's start at the beginning. So, where are we right now? We are possibly in a simulation. Oh, that's crazy, you say, Will. That's crazy. Well, how can you say we're in a simulation? There's no power cord, right? Nobody can unplug this whole thing. Um, but this is actually what you might call a philosophical simulation. And there's all these different ways to look at it. Basically, who creates this simulation, right? Is it media? Is it the elites? Is it capitalism? Is it greed, right? Who creates this simulation, and how do we see through the simulation? How do we, you might say, lift up the veil? How do you might say, take the red pill and see what's behind the simulation? Um, what I like to focus on, and what I'm focusing on for the purposes of this exercise, for the most part, is climate change. I think that's the most obvious, you might say, glitch in the matrix, in the simulation. Um, Philosophically, the simulation, it basically, not to get too deep or anything, basically the simulation is an artifice of reality. So if the reality is that our planet is burning and our simulation says it's just fine, go about your business, buy Starbucks or whatever, then that would be the simulation, right? That would be the glitch in the system if you can see behind it, right? If you look at the code, the planetary heating going up, right? The amount of carbon in the atmosphere building up, the amount of weather anomalies. Those are like, glitches you might see in the simulation, bits of truth, if you will. And there's all these underlining parts of the simulation that are aiming towards system failure. So let's talk about the pill, right? Everybody would probably say, if given the choice, I'm taking the red pill. Or they might even say, I already take the red pill. I am already a subscriber to the truth. I'm on your side, even, right? This is the kind of things, the kind of rhetoric people will say. And what I would say to that is that look at the character Cypher. Um, Knowing the truth about the red pill is not the same as acting on the truth of the red pill, right? And, people's instincts actually, there's all these studies that show that people's instincts are actually to fight against the truth or fight against, being unplugged or coming out of the system, um, vigorously, you might say. And full disclosure, this character Cypher in this movie Matrix, I did not know this until I had done weeks of work on this. And last night I was rewatching The Matrix and I found out that Smith actually refers to Cypher as Mr. Reagan. And that happens to be my name. Reagan, O'Regan. I kind of go between all of those. I'm multi nomenclatured, if you will. I don't really differentiate too much. It's a little bit different than my given name, Regan, but Reagan, I do identify as a Reagan sort of as well. And so having him be a Reagan in the Matrix, but Cypher outside of it, is interesting to me. It's interesting. It's kind of the character I'm personally trying to not emulate. I want to not be the guy that's going back into the system. Anyways, so knowing the truth is not the same as acting on the truth, right? And then he's eating this piece of steak. And is that important? Who knows? Um, And then we have a little thing called hope and grief, right? And so when you start taking the red pill, you start losing hope, right? And when you start taking the red pill, you start experiencing grief. And dealing with the grief, falling down the rabbit hole, if you will, is the difficult thing, right? This is the thing that causes people to go back to Cypher's side, to basically, I won't give too much away about the rest of the presentation. By the way, all Matrix spoilers are pretty much out in the open here. So if you haven't seen the movie, you will have to see the movie one time, but it's going to be a little bit spoiled for you. But basically, hope and grief are these things that you're going to be wrestling with while trying to take these red pills, which is like a necessary part of the process for whatever reason, right? It seems that going beyond dealing with the truth of the simulation requires taking these red pills and understanding the simulation. Like there's no other way to unplug, according to some philosophies, right? Maybe you could do good for destroying the matrix without that, but so anyways, so you're taking the red pill, right? A new thing inside of the matrix is this character Deja Vu, which they introduced in the latest Matrix, and I find this Deja Vu character to be very interesting. So this is the cat, right? And it signifies a glitch in the Matrix, and that's kind of one of the things I want to bring up. This is about the truth, right? The red pill. So you're taking the red pill. Let's say you're watching this movie Breaking Boundaries, which I highly suggest. Okay. Well, let's say instead of watching it, you just kind of read, Breaking Boundaries. Oh, so the Earth's got planetary boundaries. Okay, I got the idea. You moved on. You did whatever else in your life. Well, that's what you got right there. As you got yourself a little black cat, walked across the screen, and you didn't react on it. You didn't move on it. You just saw a glitch in the Matrix, and it walked right by, and you didn't do anything. And why is that? So if you had in this metaphor, if you had approached the cat and taken it apart or whatever, and found out that it was a glitch or whatever else was going on around you, you would have revealed more about the system, and you would have been more invested in reality, and you would have begun to break down the simulacrum, and you would be existing in the actual reality instead of the facade reality. So yeah, the Deja Vu cat is very important, I think, according to the latest Matrix. And so I was just watching this Breaking Boundaries movie, right? In fact, I would start people off here. Even though it's not a perfect representation of the truth, it reveals enough about what's going on that's just, the information's just not anywhere else, that it's pretty much good enough to get you started, right? And there's some things that are just only there in the Breaking Boundaries movie, and you can find them in other places, but not in a concentrated amount. So I definitely suggest people watch these Breaking Boundaries and start to break down, the system. Start to break down the system. There's another thing we see inside of the Matrix, and it's funny. I actually called this chapter of this system failure before I had rewatched the movie. And then I saw system failure come up in the movie, and I was like, whoa, this is a great coincidence. So this is actually a really good, happy accident. I actually grabbed that screen and I put it inside of here, or I found this image, and I put it inside of here, and it really works. So this next part of the simulation breakdown is what I call system failure. Okay. So this is where the system is starting to fail us. I shouldn't move the microphone. That'd be really bad. This is where the system is starting to fail us. And these documentaries, I find, are good at activating people to the truth, you might say. You might also say that they're a good way of depicting the scale of the failure, of the system failure we are immersed in, or we are complicit in, or taking part in, and the direction of the failure, sort of. So, right, it's like the black cat analogy, you could just see it and just keep walking, or you could actually analyze it and begin to exist in the reality that we must exist in. not so much you got to take your pills, right? You got to take your pills. You have to understand how the system is failing, what is failing, in order to exist in the reality. That's the metaphor we're going with. So I suggest watching these films, and I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say about this right now, so I'm not gonna go into it too much, but let's just show off where this is going a little bit. So we have a PDF, so let's just go back a little bit. I don't know what time it is. Okay, we're at 10 minutes. All right. So we've got this PDF, okay? And in the PDF, we've done like a Venn diagram of what's going on with this red pill. So we're over here, right? We're in the red pill territory. We're taking our pills. We're getting ready to move along inside our pills. If you download the PDF, which there's going to be a link for somewhere, you can click on these. And Cowspiracy, Searspiracy, Chasing Coral, they're all on Netflix. Breaking Boundaries is also on Netflix. But if you click on them, it'll take you right to it. And you can watch it right there. So that's a nice thing about the PDF. The PDF will be available for anybody who wants it. And it's kind of part of the Venn diagram of our big matrix analogy, if you will. So hang on with me here. Let's see where this goes. By the way, this is probably going to be a 3-hour video. I'm hoping people are entertained. So we're continuing to take our red pills. So the next part of the red pill is what I'm going to call greenwashing. And here's where we really start to fall down the rabbit hole. And a lot of people don't like this part. Because it tells you you've got to completely reject the system. You have to completely reject the simulation at this point, right? This film is called Planet of the Humans, okay? And what Planet of the Humans really focuses on, and people don't give it credit for this, is greenwashing. And there'll be people who say it doesn't take it too far, that it takes it too far. And then there will be people who say it doesn't take it far enough. And so you got to kind of be the judge. But ultimately, I would say that 95 to 98% of it is like right on cue. And those 2 to 5% that like people want to argue if it was fair or not fair, to make those criticisms that they make inside about greenwashing. If people want to make those arguments, they can. But it's only a 90-minute movie, so people kind of got to chill out a little bit, because if they made it a 3-hour movie, it could have been a lot worse. So that's what I got. So we're falling down the rabbit hole. We're taking our pills. We're existing in the reality, or we're understanding reality as it needs to be. And this is kind of a necessary part of acting in the reality. Like you can't act within the reality if you don't understand the reality, right? And that's the most important thing here, right? So we got to break down the greenwashing, right? And then the last part, and this is kind of, you're throwing you a bone here. So this last one is called Hope and Grief. And so what this film really does, hopefully, is it helps you deal with the hope and grief, right? And so we've got here 2 little images, one of Cypher betraying the team, and one of Tank coming back. I think his name is Tank. I would hate to get his name wrong, but I think it's Tank. Let's see. Well, let's just Google it really quickly. Let's just see. Tank Matrix. Let's see what shows up. Okay, it's Tank. All right. Didn't get that wrong. So this is Tank. And now I put $10 on this because it costs money. This is the first one that's going to cost money. But I think it's worth it. I mean, it's a really beautiful film, and it just helps deal with things on an emotional level and existing in the reality. So this film, it kind of takes all of the truths that we've gone over mostly for granted, showing us some more truths, but also talking about how we deal with that on a spiritual level, but also in a in just a straightforward kind of way. Um, and also, there's some good people in it, good people that we kind of respect in the rebellion, if you will. So it's just kind of like a nice little film to watch. But I would consider that to be an additional pill because it deals with hope and grief in an honest way where other films are not doing this. So like this film is built specifically to get you through this point and to get you to be able to act. I feel like, and there's actually people from Extinction Rebellion and Greta Thunberg and Roger Hallam who are all really respected, mobilizing lots of people to act on climate, who are in this film and well represented. So that's good as well. So it's really, really a good film. I feel like. So that's my red pills. There are tons more films you could watch. Some are gonna be worse. Maybe some could be better. I don't know. If you find better films, let me know about them. But keep in mind that I tend to shy away from anything that gives hope. Right? This film itself doesn't give hope. It talks about dealing with grief and finding hope in other things. So anything that's going to give false hope, I'm going to turn away from as part of the simulation. Right? So we're awakening. We're seeing. Okay. That is a destroyed aspect of the planets. This is what Matrix. This is what the world looks like when Neo wakes up. They only show it for a few seconds, so it's just that's all they do, right? That's just the same way in the Terminator. They only show the destroyed world for a little bit, but this is the awakening. This is the seeing. All right. So the next part that I like to talk about is corruption in America. This just fits in here as a necessary part of our journey, our intellectual journey. So most people know this and are taking it for granted, and therefore I don't feel a lot of reason to go into depth on this. We all kind of understand on a very basic level that this is true, but it's a 5-minute video that talks about the incompetence of Congress and how they actually don't listen to people at all. And it's a really good video. And so corruption, it's called Corruption is Legal in America. It actually is for a completely different organization that I don't really support or know anything about. But that's on here too. So you can click on this. It's a YouTube video. And it just takes a few minutes. You could watch it.
For the last few
I'm not going to play it here, but that's where it is. The next one is I'm not a battery. So, for lack of a better metaphor, you're unplugging from the battery and we're subscribing to a different political model with Extinction Rebellion, or, there might be like Burning Pink is also another one. There's a few other organizations that are advocating for citizens' assemblies and a similar sort of pathway that I'm going to lay out here. But basically, I'm not a battery, and a citizens' assembly is about giving power back to the 99%. It goes back to this guy, Sauron. I guess his name is Sauron. I don't know. Something like that. Some old Greek philosopher. Anyways, he had a great idea. It was similar to a jury. What we've got going now is also similar. These citizens' assemblies or sortitions are a really good form of democracy that just basically kicks out the old and brings in the new. And basically, long story short is if you somehow, for some reason, had to overthrow your government, you could replace your government with a citizens' assembly, and you could do far worse than that, right? Replacing your government with a citizens' assembly would be great. And the thing is about citizens' assemblies is they're like ready to go. So it's just like unplugging from the battery. You unplug the old, you put in the new, and boom, you've got a new government. And it's from the people, by the people, and the 99%, get to run the show basically. So that's a great thing. Citizens' assemblies. but let's move on. All right. So next we've got decentralization. So you're unplugged from the battery. What are you doing, right? What exactly is going on? So maybe you're joining the rebellion. Maybe you're joining Extinction Rebellion. So we're going to talk a little bit about Extinction Rebellion, which is the group I advocate for. This is the group I'm part of. Let's see, we're at 20 minutes in. Looks like we might get through the whole thing. So this is about decentralization. The film I'm suggesting at this point is called Pussy Riot, a punk prayer. I believe it's an HBO thing. I'm not sure, but let's talk about the Matrix a little bit. So once Neo unplugs from the Matrix and then goes back in, he finds like friends, right? So like this is kind of like a decentralized, system. So like you've got the Oracle, you've got these potential kids. They're all doing stuff too, but they don't answer to anybody else. They're just kind of doing their own thing and trying to help out with the resistance or whatever it is. And they're all kind of playing by the same rules, but different in a different way. And so Pussy Riot, a punk prayer, I think hits on this. A lot of movements have not nailed decentralization. Extinction Rebellion has a good decentralization model, which you can go over it in depth another time, but it's based on basically the principles and values of Extinction Rebellion, which is similar to Pussy Riot. It's like anybody can be Pussy Riot. All you got to do is put the mask on, kind of thing. It's a lot different. Extinction Rebellion doesn't wear masks, but whatever. So this is a non-hierarchical model, right? You got many leaders. It's difficult to stop. New leaders are made easily. They've got a culture of inclusivity, right? Rule breaking is valued. The sacred practice of rule breaking. So you'll see this in the Matrix movie. Basically, oh, you broke that vase? Great, I'll have somebody else fix that vase. We're just going to revel in the fact that we're breaking the rules of the system. Oh, that's a spoon? There is no spoon, right? It's going to bend the spoon, right? You're just breaking the rules of the simulation, and it's sort of valued. So in our civil disobedience world, breaking the rules of the simulation is protesting and getting arrested, I would say. So this is a different kind of rule breaking, right? By the way, I've been arrested 7 times since April for Extinction Rebellion, full disclosure. So I do value it, and I've been working towards that for like a number of years, and it's been very long process to get to the East Coast, to sort of get to a situation where I felt like I could do strategic arrests, and I had a good community around me ready to support. So yeah, I do feel like Washington, D.C., New York City are a great place to do it, but you can do it anywhere. It's decentralized. Next is disruption. So this is another thing that's part of the Matrix, right? So in the Matrix, what happens, right? This is another valued part of the Matrix. So at one point, Morpheus gets captured. Freaking, it's like they left the Matrix, but they go back into the Matrix. Why are they going back into the Matrix? Well, they're going back in to occupy it, to blow things up mentally, right? They use weapons and stuff, but you have to remember they're doing everything with their mind, right? It's all through the power of the mind. But they go back in to kind of just like fuck shit up. They're just like, we're going to be these like warriors of the mind that are going to go in there and rescue Morpheus, who got stuck in there. And Morpheus is stuck. You can see, he's trapped. And I've got 2 documentaries here that kind of talk about this process of just jumping back into the system and occupying and creating chaos and using just kind of like a brute force of disruption, sort of. Disruption is very important. It really kind of brings out the underlying cracks in the Matrix. It allows other people to see what's going on. So disruption is important. These films I felt were the best at doing it. I believe Battle in Seattle, you could stream it on one of those free things. Occupy, I think you have to pay for it. We could check out Battle in Seattle really quickly. Okay. Sometimes this click thing doesn't work that well. Battle in Seattle. Give me Battle in Seattle.
Zapier automates our entire client.
All right. Well, I do not want that. I want Battle in Seattle.
Hello, and welcome to the second.
All right. Well, the PDF's not working right now. Anyways, Battle in Seattle. You can find it. It's free. See, we're 25 minutes in. We're doing pretty good here. We're doing good on time. We're on number 8, which is like halfway through. So, moving right along. Our next step is imagination. Okay, so we're taking on this simulation, right? We're trying to break down the simulation. We're trying to put in citizens' assemblies. We're trying to stop climate change. Imagination is going to be one of our tools, right? And the example I'm giving is the three things happening here. So, number one, it's just like these totally imaginative things that are happening. So, one, like they bring a helicopter. First of all, she doesn't know how to fly a helicopter. She uploads the helicopter, gets in, she sort of commands the helicopter and flies around. Neo's shooting, and then Morpheus sort of makes a leap of faith and jumps into Neo's hands, and then they're like flying around the city. This is totally imaginative. Nobody saw this coming, right? And then the thing crashes, but Neo, instead of just like unhooking and letting Trinity die, he holds onto the rope, and you can see that here that he's holding onto the rope, and Trinity is able to jump onto the rope in time, and it's just like this beautiful moment, this imagination. So we're talking about, with the documentary I want people to watch, is Berkeley in the 60s. So we're talking about synergy. We're talking about taking risks. We're talking about combining skills, building friendships, trusting companions. So a little bit on the time scale here. For the time scale for like a revolution is about 6 months. What happens with Berkeley in the 60s is it takes place over like 10 years. So you got to be kind of ready for that. And so there's a lot of little tiny things that are happening. But it's a good model, and it's really, really good at sort of like giving you a massive creative amount of information. It's just totally recommended watching. You just got to watch it. So that's the Berkeley in the 60s film. And that kind of fills out the imagination. And so now we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty. All right. So we've sort of been taking a long road around, sort of. Now we're going to start going into what we actually have to do. Because we're still building skills. We're still learning about the matrix and how to affect the matrix, and how to break down that reality and live in the truth. Now the next part is going to be a little bit more on the nose, so brace yourselves. So first we've got social science, okay? This is a major, you might say, a pill that we have to take, right? The social science is saying that nonviolence is more powerful than violence, right? And the leading person that talks about this, her name is Chenoweth, and she's on the diagram as well, right? So you can, let's see, can we get to that? Let's see. So that's Chenoweth.
We save more than 30 hours a week automating our lead generation and sales process.
This is really like a 10-minute video. This is really easy to watch. She's got much more in-depth research that is, backed by scholars from all over the world. But this 10-minute TED Talk gets to the heart of it, and that's really all you need. You don't need to read her PhD dissertations and all that kind of stuff. You just need the basic info, and the basic info is that nonviolence is more powerful than violence, and it's been proven over and over again. And really the only argument that people make against this is that they're talking about revolutions. Well, like, that's what we need. We need a revolution. We need to break down a simulation like we're talking about, right? We can't do that without kind of a huge revolution. So I've got this helicopter here, just like upload this to your consciousness, just like Trinity did with the helicopter. Just put it in there. Nonviolence is powerful. Go through the video, listen to what she has to say. There's a lot of kung fu, you might say. There's a lot of spoon bending wisdom. Some TED Talks just have that one idea. well, she's a PhD level level person. She's going to throw in a lot of wisdom in here, and so you can watch this video multiple times over the years and always get something different about it, and that goes for probably a lot of this stuff, right? Next, we're going to talk about nonviolent history. So, here's another tool that you're going to have in your back pocket if you're engaging in a breakdown of the matrix. If you're engaging in this, so realize that you don't have these muscles yet. Okay, maybe you have some of them, but you don't have all of them, right? You might be able to in other words, you might be able to move around, but not with the kung fu ability, right? So you've just broken out of the matrix, and they've got to actually rebuild all of your muscles, just like with Neo here, right? So Neo is basically, he's atrophied. He's been a battery his whole life, and so it takes a very long time to kind of give him all of his muscles back and everything. And so that's what's going on here. It's like you've got a nonviolent history that includes Gandhi and Martin Luther King and all these different sort of people. You sort of have to ingest these, right? And it takes time, and you're not going to get it all in one go. In fact, it's going to take a lot of time to get all these different stories in. A Force More Powerful is good. It's narrated by Ben Kingsley, but even still, you're going to be able to watch a couple vignettes a night or whatever. These are red pills, but they're going to be hard to take because it's history, right? But it's nonviolent history, and it's very powerful. It is what it is. Take what you can use, leave what you can't. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot of time to be, developing like Gandhi-esque level, philosophies and stuff. Even what I'm doing here is out of control, right? But this took 3 years to come across this sort of matrix idea. So, anyway, so next we've got inspiring. All right, so what's going to inspire our actions? So, for me, it's Extinction Rebellion, right? This is my dojo, if you will, right? This is where I practice my kung fu, is with the Extinction Rebellion movement, right? And so I've pulled the 3 videos that I think best depict that Extinction Rebellion spirit, and I've put them here. And they're all mostly from the UK footage. I think they might all be from the UK, pretty much. And a little bit of Greta, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But these videos, I promise you can watch them 5, 10 times. You'll always notice something new, always notice something different, and you'll always be growing if you're continuing to watch these guys. These are good. And this is the dojo. We spent a lot of time in the dojo, or Neo spent a lot of time in that dojo, right? Sparring with Morpheus, right? So going back and forth, boom, 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 right? He downloaded Kung Fu, he downloaded Drunken Boxing, he downloaded all these different things. Well, that's kind of what these protests are like, right? You're utilizing all these Extinction Rebellion protests are using all these different levels of art and nonviolence and peace and occupation. All these different ideas are present inside of these films, and so it's just a really good thing to watch. And the UK is not super authoritarian, it's not super liberal. It's kind of in the middle. It's probably more liberal than most countries, but it's just a good starting block for something. So these are great videos. Highly recommend going through all of them. If you watch all 3, it's 20 minutes, but you could pepper them in, right? These are good ones to pepper in, especially in the middle of a meeting or something like that, to kind of break things up. I like to show these guys, and people always love them. They always love them once you start showing those videos. All right, so that's my inspiration part. Let's go to the next part. Skills and strategy. This is where it gets a little more serious. So, and you can get really into this guy. So this guy's name is Srdja Popvic. And this is really only a 10-minute video, but now you're talking about another top level communicator. And so you could listen to this guy over and over and over again and kind of get different messages each time. But basically, this guy is the guy that, get 20, 30 people in a room and then overthrow a dictator kind of guy. That's the sort of mobilizer, sort of communicator this guy represents. And so I once again, I put us in the dojo, creating the simulation with the woman in the red dress and the fall program. And that's kind of what we're talking about, like, or the jump program, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this level of intensity of training. Just like, let's go through this program. Let's go through this program. Let's see where this leads, he has a book called Blueprint for a Revolution, ironically, that he wrote after he helped overthrow the dictator in Serbia. He's gone around the world overthrowing dictators. He's taught at colleges. So, his video is good. It's a good video. And if you want to talk about somebody who's ready to break down pretty much any simulation, that's this guy. He's revealing the cracks in the system, if you will. So next we got the heading for extinction. Now this is probably, now we're in the center. We're in the very center. So let's go back to our Venn diagram. So we've traveled around the outside. We've traveled around the red pill. We've traveled around unplugging the battery. We've even hit some of these areas where we're combining the pill and the battery and the spoon bending. We've gone through the spoon bending and the kung fu, right? We're skipping radicalization over here. And now we're in the center. And there's a reason why we're skipping radicalization. We'll get to that at the end. But now we're in the center. So these are the elements that incorporate everything. Sort of like this video, right? It's like a thing and a thing. But this video, is incorporating everything, right? So these are the things that I think are also incorporating everything. Maybe not even as comprehensive as this video, because this video encompasses that. So, there you go. But not to say this video is that great, but whatever. So anyways, heading for extinctions in the middle of this video, right? And so here we've got Neo is inside the Matrix. He is stopping the bullets, right? He's doing that weird flex thing where he warps the whole world. I forgot what that was about. Like he blew up one of the Smiths. Anyways, so this is the heading for extinction talk. It is a 50-minute talk about Extinction Rebellion. It's called Heading for Extinction and What to Do About It. This talk has been given in person probably thousands of times by now. And I know that just because of how many people I've talked to who have given the talk and the people they've talked to who have given the talk and stuff like that. This is Gail Bradbrook, one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion, giving the talk. That's what this link goes to. And this link, that's what this link here goes to, is the Gail Bradbrook talk, hopefully. Yeah, there it is. And that one has, you can see,
sweet spot to give you
200,000 views, right? And all of us who are in Extinction Rebellion, well, a lot of people who are in it, watch these talks multiple times. And so it's okay to watch not just her talk, but like lots of talks. So, where are we? Let's get back to Gail here. Oops. Now we're at the end. There we go. Heading for Extinction. So that's the Heading for Extinction talk. That would be in the center, encompassing everything. And these can be given in person or online. Like, I believe on Monday there's one in person here in New York City. I might attend that one, or I might be just trying to get other people to attend it. But that's sort of like one of the centerpieces of our rebellion. Next, I got influential voices. So this is also in the center. Okay, so right here in the center, we've got Roger Hallam and Peter Kalmus. And there's a reason why I kind of put them in the center. It's because these voices have just been consistently inspiring for people. Just based on the feedback that I've gotten from people in the rebellion, people who are making sacrifices, people who are taking the steps necessary to break down this simulation, are inspired by these guys. And these guys have like reached the highest level. So you could see Neo is dodging bullets, and you can see Trinity, the moment where she actually kills an agent, kills, but it's like mental, right? It's a computer program. That's the level that Roger Hallam and Peter Kalmus are like operating on. Like, they are extremely popular within the community in their bubbles. The people who love them really, really love them, especially Roger Hallam. Peter Kalmus is generally loved as well, and Roger sometimes can be a little bit one way or another. Some people really dislike his strategies, but there's no denying the fact that they are good at mobilizing people who are in the rebellion, and at a very high level, at a level where it takes people to higher levels, where it pushes people to higher limits and makes more things possible. These guys are making more things possible through their actions and their dialogue and their communication skills. So those guys, I'm putting them as influential voices. Now you might say, okay, there's no female voices here. Why do you have only male voices? Well, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I thought about this a lot. And basically the only thing that I could say is that if you're a woman and you want to find female voices in Extinction Rebellion, you can, okay? I don't feel like it's my place to tell you. I don't feel like it'd be even very feminine of me to be like, oh, point to that, mansplain the female that I like or whatever. Like, there are lots of females in Extinction Rebellion that are really, really inspirational in making things happen. And, I could name like, Gail Bradbrook and Claire Farrell and, the woman at the end of the Troublemaker movie and stuff like that. Rose Abramoff, these are like really, really exciting females. And some outside the movement, like Adrienne Marie Brown, I find to be very inspirational. But I don't feel like putting them inside of the influential voices is like, it would be a very feminine thing to do. I think feminism has got to go beyond that and be really more encompassing and inclusive. So I'm just sticking with these male influences for now. And people are more than welcome to like tell me like, which females do you want in this influential voices? How should I present influential voices? How can I reorganize this to include those female voices and voices for people of color and stuff like that for the rebellion, that people who are moving this rebellion forward, actively right now? And who are they? I want to create those conversations. So this is not to shut down those conversations. This is just to kind of create some guideposts for these particular voices, which happen to be white masculine voices, right? For whatever reason. But that's where that is, right? So finally, we're going to loop all the way back around. So now we're at radicalization. And so this part, which is sort of like, this is the unfortunate part that I have to include in this thing. Unfortunate, not unfortunate, I don't know. I don't really understand why I'm saying that word. But basically, what's going on here is radicalization. These are sort of, once again, these are guideposts, right? So you can see like the image that I chose here was Trinity bringing Neo back to life. And here we have actually, the image is Neo being bugged by the Smiths and being silenced by the Smiths. So, I'm kind of giving you a hint of where I'm going with this, why it's necessary to have radicalization involved. And basically what it comes down to is we can be our own worst enemies, right? Yeah, the simulation is fucking terrible, right? But if we just go at it with a little bit too much brute force, we could end up becoming our own worst enemy, and moving the entire simulation forward, People like, oh, this is a terrible idea. We got to go with the simulation, right? the idea is to break down the simulation and reveal the cracks in the simulation. And so these films do a good job of revealing the cracks in the simulation and also revealing the cracks in our own simulations that we're creating. Like, are we changing the world when we do this, this, and this? Or is this a false kind of simulation? Is this not the world that we want to create? Or is this just creating a small bubble that's not gonna actually expand, right? So this is about radicalization, and so in what way people have radicalized in the past and what way people are radicalizing now is completely different. Like, we're just talking about all this modern good form of mobilization and radicalization. This kind of goes back to some of the strategies that were less successful, but very fun and exciting and inspirational, but less successful on a broader sense. And the social science is telling us, and everything else is telling us that, these are guideposts of, what to be wary of in our rebellion, what sort of behaviors we should be cognitive of, right? Sort of, but also telling a really good story, like really good emotional stories. So both of these were really good. That If a Tree Falls came out first, Animal People came out second, but the executive producer is Jacqueline Phoenix. You can see that here. Really, pretty much, if you're not crying throughout all of these films, I don't know. You haven't been around long enough then. But because all of these are going to bring tears to your eyes. So many of these, right? Films. Be prepared to cry. Be prepared to want to be held. Right? Like, it's that bad, right? All of these are bringing emotion, and yeah, these are also going to bring emotion. But just be prepared, So that's the radicalization form. So that pretty much wraps up my my presentation. So that's a full 46 minutes. At this point, there really isn't a whole lot else to say. I should wrap this up so that it doesn't look like too long of a film. What I will say is that, I've been in Extinction Rebellion for 3 years now, and I'm seeing a lot that's not only come of it, but a lot of improvement and growth in myself and those around me. And I really feel like this is going somewhere, right? And, it was slowed down a lot it's only been around a few years. It was slowed down a lot by COVID. But what I see going on, especially in New York City here in the United States, is just amazing. And so we're going to close this out with XR New York City. So I'm actually on Staten Island right now. I've traveled around the country to basically, more or less, ultimately I was trying to get to this point. So I'm in New York City now, and I think that XR New York City is pretty much the best shot we have at breaking down the simulation of destroying the artifice that is separating us from reality. Everything that we talked about, I feel like this is the vehicle to do it. And I'm going to be trying to work with them more and more. I want to create a film group where we can show a lot of the films I've been talking about, and and keep exploring this theme. There are other ways to explore the theme. Obviously join Extinction Rebellion New York City. Here is a Heading for Extinction talk taking place on Monday. That's the one I want people to go to. Here's an art training. Here's an NVDA training, so nonviolent civil disobedience training. Those are pretty much required. Here's another Heading for Extinction talk. And I'm hoping more and more stuff is popping up. They had a spring rebellion in April where I was arrested twice there, and actually there was 91 arrests. It was a really, really great action. We had hundreds and hundreds of people in the street for 10 days. Some of us got arrested more than once. That's why there were so many arrests. We shut down the New York Times for a day, and really, I just had a great time. I felt like I met really great people. I felt like I created some really good relationships, And I do feel like XR New York City is the best Extinction Rebellion chapter in the country. So this is the one that I think to join. If you can't join the New York City one, join the one that's local. If there's nothing local, you could start your own group. Reach out to us. I am with XR Pathways, so my group. This is my own group here. This is an affinity group, so it's called XR Pathways. You can join in on this app. There's songs, there's different things. I'm going to be including some more Matrix of Extinction Rebellion stuff on there eventually. So this is kind of part of Pathways, which is, once again, it's just like a decentralized thing, right? So think of the Oracle, right? You walk into a room and suddenly somebody's baking cookies and somebody's bending a spoon, and that's kind of what this is, So it's not directly embedded in XR New York City, but it could be. Like there could be links between the two of them, right? So anyways, that's what I'm working on right now. And I think one final thing kind of deserves mention. There are a number of good YouTube videos online that analyze analyze the Matrix, which has been inspiring this talk. And I guess I can just pull up the book. So these two books were required reading for the cast of the Matrix, right? This one especially I like a lot. This one is really, really good. This is like the Wired guy, I guess, the editor of Wired. It's really thick. But this one is actually the book that this book is in the movie. So Neo actually has a copy of this book in the movie. He's like got something hidden inside of it. This book is about breaking down the whole thing. And let me just read this quote, the very first quote of the book. "The simulacrum is never what hides the truth. It is the truth that hides the fact that there is none. The simulacrum is true." So in other words, the simulation is real, right? The simulation is reality. That's the scary part, right? It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. I love this book, and I'm going to be reading more and more of it. But yeah, let's close it out with that.